indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, it's going to be a little pressure to move fast tonight because of some very important subjects we have to discuss. And I'm going to be moving things a little bit on the agenda, the order. But first off is the audit report, and Vince and Katie are here. Vince, Katie?
You can stand up front, sir.
You can understand it. Yeah, you understand it.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Vince Camissa with Kilbrack and Tremonti. I'm the partner on the account. Katie Doran is the shareholder. She's here as well. We appreciate everybody having us present tonight, and we'll try to keep it to the point and brief. If there's any questions as I continue along, just please feel free to interrupt, or if you remember something after the meeting and you want to email one of us or reach out, please do that as well. Just to give everybody, bring up everybody up to speed as to where we are with the audit. Katie and I met with the audit committee back in June to introduce ourselves. The audit committee was something that was created during the year, so we met with them in June. We met with the finance committee on October 17th, and they got a real detailed picture of the packet that you have in front of you. There's a couple small changes that we did incorporate. Tim was there, David Gilliam was there, audit committee, finance committee, a couple other board members. So that's kind of where we are today. If the board approves the report, the draft report's in your packet tonight. We can issue the audit early next week and date everything with tonight's date. If you guys do a resolution, we'll get to that in a little while here. Another pressing item is the 990 tax return. That return has been disseminated to a couple of the board members, the president, a couple on the finance committee, Tim Wiles, and we have the e-file authorization tonight for Dan Sentis to sign pending these approvals. So that is due Tuesday, so that's something we can also take back with us tonight, so we can e-file that tomorrow or Monday, so you guys don't need an extension. So the first item I want to go through is the financial statements, which is the first item in your packet. If you go to page number 1, it's the independent auditor's report. And the finance committee and audit committee can also be a resource if there's something I missed tonight that we've covered at a previous time, but I'm going to kind of hit the highlights. This is a independent auditor's report. It states that we as auditors issued an unqualified opinion. That's really the highest opinion that we can issue, stating that there's no material misstatements within the financials. Also states that everything is fairly presented, including disclosure. So this is same opinion that's been issued the past couple of years. You guys should be very proud of it. We can't go any higher, like I said, so that's just to bring everybody up to speed. If we continue along to page 3, this is the statement of financial position. It explains that the changes for particular asset and liability accounts at a snapshot in time, which in the library's case is June 30th. A couple of takeaways here. The library had some capital projects going on this year with regard to fixed assets. There was the LED lighting project, the roof project, and the loading dock. Each of these projects had a grant associated with them. So within the statement, you're going to see some grant revenue as well. So although these projects were incurred, there was corresponding grant revenue and receipts as well. So just keep that in mind as we look at some of these changes. Cash was an item that did go up about $550,000 from the previous year, and I'm going to kind of segue everything together. The library budgets on a break-even basis, where it's a cash basis budget. $3.6 million is the voter-approved budget. With that is $3.6 million of expenses. So there was efficiencies that Tim and his staff implemented this year. There was numerous categories that did come in under budget that we'll see. Salaries is one, materials, a couple other categories as well. Combined with some additional revenues that were received that weren't budgeted for. Examples of these are some of the grants that I mentioned. Senator Amador in his office, the UHLS, roof grant, and these are things that are all going towards the positive operating results for the year. You know, being underspent on your expenses, receiving more than you budgeted for, leads the library to have such a great year, as we'll see. And a lot of the increase in cash is because of that. You're spending less, you're receiving more. You guys are going to have a surplus of cash and net assets, which kind of tells the story of that page 3. A couple other highlights: deferred revenue. On some of these projects that the library did enter into this year, they also entered into an agreement with Gilliland School District to be the construction manager / advisor, consultant on some of these projects. So there were some synergies that the library was able to capitalize on. They underspent on some of the projects. The deferred revenue there is specifically related to the Senator Amador grant on the roof project. So the excess money is being held until a new project can kind of go against that and the expenses are incurred. So that's not grant revenue until those expenses are incurred. Most likely, with knowing some of the board minutes review and discussions with Tim, there seems to be a lot of other projects kind of on the back burner. So depending on the timing of that money might get reclassified and adjusted through grant revenue in the next year. Some of the projects I mentioned, the roof, the loading dock, the lighting project, a lot of these were towards the end of the year. So some of the payables and accrued expenses, the increases there were related to timing. A lot of these projects have since been paid subsequent to year end, and a lot of these timing things will, factor into next year when most likely they're going to be down depending on what's in process at June 30th. Any questions as we move along? On page 4, this kind of tells the story of the year of the revenue received and the expenses incurred. Biggest highlights here is the tax levy went up about 2.9%, so that's about $100,000 more of revenue for the year. And also the grants, those went up $217,000, and a lot of this is timing, when the applications are submitted, when the grant monies are received, and when the expenses and fixed assets are incurred on some of these grants. So increases of revenue combined of about $320,000 or 9%, combined with an expense increase of overall about $150,000 rounded, which is about 5.5%. Biggest expense increases are salaries and fringe benefits related to health insurance, retirement costs, things like that. A lot of the salaries are in accordance with union contracts and other contracts, and they are budgeted for each year. And the net surplus or change in net assets for the year is about $650,000. That includes depreciation expense of about $155,000. So if when you're looking at your budget, you have to kind of consider some of these factors, because depreciation expense is a non-cash item, which is not budgeted for each year, but it is included here. So these are important to note as you're ticking and tying and kind of looking into budget to actual results. Any questions on that page, guys?
Vince, what are we running as a percentage of fringe benefits over salaries?
It's kind of skewed depending on, like I said, if you're looking at the whole thing, it's let's see, it's about $500,000 versus 1.8 million, so almost a little over a quarter on that, maybe between a quarter and
That
third.
sounds reasonable, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
if you guys go to page 5, the next page, this gives a breakout of some of the expenses that I just went over. You know, the bigger ones is the salaries and the fringes and library materials and professional fees. So these are things that are budgeted for. You know, you really have to look at the budget to actual, but also prior year versus current year. So there's a couple of other ways to look at it. Even though the salaries are up, they're also 82,000 under budget. So it's really twofold. You have to look at all the factors instead of just, you know, what's on this page. There's also budget reports you guys have. Fringes, same thing. It's up about 43,000, but it's also 40,000 under budget. So there's a lot of good things happening here at the library, and you know, you guys are consistently showed, you know, being very cognizant of the budget and not overspending on categories, and that's great to see. So that's kind of the abbreviated version of this page. We've been through some of the other changes at the other Finance Committee meeting. Any questions as we move ahead? Okay, page 11 and 12 is kind of the last items on the statement. And we went through this at the meeting a couple weeks ago. Actually, if you go to page 12, that's where it factors in. This is just a detailed footnote on the retirement plan that shows a trend in the last 3 years. And that's going to be interesting to see how 2017 plays out with what the state sends to the library for their portion of the ERS system retirement contribution. The middle paragraph there explains a change in accounting standard in the governmental industry. The library is under not-for-profit standards. This disclosure relates to governmental entities, but the library and governmental entities are both in this ERS plan. So although it's not required to show on your statement of financial position, we thought it was beneficial to the financial statement readers to include this note. And all it says is basically the ERS plan as a whole is underfunded as of their measurement and valuation date. And this is kind of showing the library's portion of that share. And every governmental entity, every agency, municipality, school that's part of this plan has the same general footnote, just different amounts. So the library's portion of the plan, that's what you're seeing there as the $848,000 net pension liability. It's just a snapshot in time. Hopefully when the market comes back, depending on how things go, we'll look at this number next year and update the financial and see if maybe the plan is overfunded. But as of the data we have, you know, basically across the system users and participants, this is the most accurate data to date. And note number 6, the bottom of the page, explains the library's relationship with the school district, Guilderland, for their synergies and construction management for the year. There was some timing differences of payments to the school on behalf of these specific projects that we thought was something that should be disclosed, which is why it's a change from the previous year. That kind of takes us through the majority of the statement. Any questions as we continue ahead?
Yeah, what is?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is on note 5, why is there such a big difference between 2014 and 2015?
The way the state does it is they have a module and a reporting system of looking at market factors and conditions and discount rates. So we went to a seminar last year and kind of got some insight as to how they're calculating it. So their data also includes market data from 5 years previous. So some of those dates for 14 encompass some of the years with the recession and tough conditions, which made the piece of annual contributions higher for that year. But as those bad years drop out, the library's contributions are lower, as you saw in 15 and 16. So it kind of depends on a variety of factors and
Because the system is making more money?
correct. So as it makes less, they have to charge back more and vice versa.
Yeah, the rates are set by the retirement system, and the library can't do a darn thing about it except control its payroll costs.
Does anybody have any questions on this financial statement? The other items that you'll see in your packet, if you keep flipping, is a couple of correspondence letters that we have to issue each year. There's a general board communications letter, there's a management letter, and there's a internal control report letter. So we've been through these with Tim, and like I said, the two committees. There's basically a plan in place to address the first management letter in your packet. There's a couple of recommendations we came up with during the audit, so we're available year-round to help out with clarification and general questions if things come up. So I'll check back with Tim on some of these if he doesn't get in touch with me sooner, and see how you guys are doing on them as the year progresses. The second letter in there is like I said, required communications we as auditors need to have with the board. It explains the timing of the audit, adjusting entries, consultations, accounting policies. Nothing really changing much from the previous year. The one item on page 3 describes a material adjustment that we had to make to the financials, which is depreciation expense. This is something that we can provide the acting chief fiscal officer so they can make the entry prior to our audit, and that's something that can come out next year depending on what else we find. So that's something that wasn't always in there based on timing and who's handling the books, and that was something this year that we did note. The last letter, we did have a change from the previous meeting. And really, this internal control letter, basically the comment towards the bottom of the page, we added some wording to basically show that the cost benefit of hiring someone with the capability to do these financial statements is not there, based on internal discussions, but management still takes responsibility of the audited statement. So that was a change that we did make, just to clarify as to who's approving the statement, the capabilities of the finance department. So that was something different that the two committees did see. Does anybody have any questions as we wrap up here?
For any of the observations and recommendations of the observations you decided, were any of them repeats from last year? I just don't recall.
There was one 1099 one that was a repeat, and I think in speaking with the two committees and Tim and David, that's going to be one of the items that they really focus on to get out of the letter next year. And the accrued vacation was one that kind of blended to this year as well as a repeat. So if you guys want to talk it over after we leave for a resolution, or you want to have it before we leave, it's completely up to you. And I'll kind of leave it at that. Again, we value the relationship, we appreciate the opportunity, and we hope to see everybody soon.
So we get a clean bill of health, right?
That's right.
Okay. To accept it? Okay.
On the 990.
All right, okay, yeah, the 990 has to be authorized, yeah. All right. Nobody has any questions? Yeah, can you wait a minute?
Yeah, no problem.
Okay. I guess traditionally what we do, and we should do, is someone should move to approve the audit report and authorize the execution and filing of the 990.
I'm not gonna, I just want to say, I'm gonna abstain from this. this is not a reflection at all on the presentation or the content of the report, but it's the first time I've seen it. So I'm not comfortable. I couldn't even formulate questions. I couldn't compare it to last year's. I didn't hear anything from the audit committee, I didn't hear anything from the finance committee. So I'm gonna abstain. I don't feel like I'm prepared enough to vote, on this.
I thought you were making a motion.
No, we've been through this before.
Okay.
This has happened in years past, and I just think I'm not comfortable.
Okay.
But typically, also, doesn't the auditors go into an executive session now with the board? You have to review the audit and to see.
I
We don't
don't,
typically do that.
I wasn't aware that we did that last year.
We haven't done that.
I mean, I don't, and the board's not on it. I'm just curious, just because you have to usually a site for that whole thing to whatever, but that's
We have in the
typically you do that
past.
to review.
What,
We have in the past. And
Yeah.
did we,
And I thought.
to be honest with you, I can't remember if we did that with the audit. I think we did do that with the audit and the finance committee.
Right, if it's considered a meeting before.
Yeah.
okay. And so, all right, okay, we're all not privy to that though.
Okay, well, Bart's made a motion.
I would second that.
Chris has seconded it. Motion is to accept the audit report as given and to authorize the execution and filing of the Form 990. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
I have to
Two.
say,
Okay, one abstention. Okay, thanks a lot. Yes.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Vince.
thank
Thanks,
you,
Katie.
Vince, thank you, Katie.
Thanks, Kate.
So did the finance go into an executive session to talk about it without the staff? Just so I'm clear. Did the finance committee, when you reviewed the audit, go into an executive session without the, I mean, usually the auditors go in and say, the staff cooperated, this is what we found on the observations,
Right.
this is what we recommend or don't recommend,
They have done it in the past,
they did this.
Did we do that with that?
I mean, that's just a course of business, it's nothing against the staff, it's just what's happened.
No, I think we
pull out.
did do that.
Okay, I'm just asking.
In the finance meeting.
It should happen, I mean, just be, especially at a time when you've had
Yes.
changes in the finance.
We did at the end
like
of the meeting,
this.
yes.
Okay,
we did.
okay, it's just protocol. Is there anything that needs to be reported or,
No, that was,
okay.
yeah.
Okay, the next on the agenda is public input session 1. I don't think there's anyone here from the public. So we can go to the next item. Tim's going to give the treasurer's report.
Okay. Well, first of all, David Gilliam is doing an excellent job, but he's not a night owl, so for the short term here, we'll be giving the treasurer's report, hopefully for just another month or two. So the first of the 3 documents that I'd like to look at is the check register. Of course, I've reviewed it and all the supporting material, and I have all that here. There was only one, there were 2 checks that I had questions about. One was Diamond Spring Water, number 699, and I just personally hadn't noticed this particular accounting category before, but it just seems odd to me to put spring water into office supplies, and yet I can't think of another category to put it in. So just an odd thought there. David and I chatted about that a little bit. Also check number 712, which is on page 2, to Hudson Valley Communications for some technical support on our IT systems. And I just wondered what it was, so I just looked at the documentation, and it was clearly explaining the documentation that we needed a little repair there. So I was personally satisfied on the check register. I suppose I can ask if anyone has questions about any particular check.
Just curious, what was the program for the egg?
The egg program that was the $500 one, right? That was John Simon, who was the producer for the band, and he appeared at, I think, 5 area libraries. We got 75 people for it, so if you divide 500 by
Yeah, that's
75,
very good.
it's fairly decent. So, in terms of any other questions on the check register? The egg, I guess, is somehow related to him, so Peter Lesser is his agent or something. So on the income statement, the big thing here is that the front page of the income statement indicates a deficit for the month of $3.28 million, which might scare you a little bit. But the check from the school district was received on 1st or 2nd or 3rd of November and deposited the same day at NBT Bank. And so the next month's report will indicate an extremely positive balance. The check this year was for $3.395 million. And I believe, if I remember correctly, that Dan Greendale had some success with the district last year. They used to pay us about 80% of the levy, followed by about 12% and then about 8%. And he just made the argument, if I remember right, that they really didn't need to hold our money. So we've gotten, I'd say 95% of the, I haven't done that percentage, but the vast majority of the money from that. And then on the particular page 2, I might need to ask Margaret for some help here. We met this afternoon with David, and the current month actual payroll, gross payroll, is $26,000 over budget. And there was a good explanation for that, and I can't remember what it was, nor can you. But it's just basically timing, it's just, the way he's got it spread out through the year.
Right.
So it's really nothing to be alarmed about. I'm sorry, I can't remember the exact. I also asked him about New York State retirement, a couple lines below that, having zeros all across, and that actually was referenced, questioned by Herb in the audit report. Basically, Dan and David have it set up so that that's recognized in December when the bill comes. So it looks like zeros now, even though there is activity with people paying in to retirement. And I personally had no other questions with the income statement. Others? Okay. And the third is the balance sheet. The first thing is that the total current assets, or excuse me, the property and equipment section, sort of the second paragraph on page 1, if you will, Barbara Frederigo and others have asked that we do an investigation of why some of these categories still exist when the mortgages in question might not exist, and the buildings on the lots might not exist, and so forth. So since the last board meeting, I've been in touch with Vince Camizzo and of course with David Gilliam, and it's both of their opinion that the thing to do is to get the audit closed and to address this during the next year, to do some research. So that's why you'll essentially see those concepts unchanged from last month. On the current liabilities, David is very, very good, and he said you're going to get a question from your board tonight about accrued expenses at $144,000. So he prepared for me a report of those, and basically 111,000 of it is for accrued payroll, and the rest is for minor payments that are still due on the roof and loading dock projects. There are also some small items like a COBRA adjustment and a health insurance adjustment, and particular bills from Ace Hardware, Home Depot, Firewall Company, Meraki. So anyway, these are accrued expenses because they are, as I understand it, they are obligations that we haven't needed to pay yet. So that's basically the story on current liabilities. We are in essentially the same position this month as last month, with the exception that we're 1 month deeper into the fiscal year. So, any questions on all of that?
What's suspense?
suspense, that was asked actually at a recent meeting.
I missed it.
Yeah, so I'm gonna keep you in suspense because I can't quite remember, but I think what it means is that something has been owed for so long that it isn't going to be paid, but we can't just write it off, we have
Right.
to say that.
Suspension,
Yeah,
yeah.
so,
I would get a donation for $5 just to get it off the page.
Okay.
there you go.
Yeah.
Wasn't it $365?
Oh, I thought it was 5, but I'm looking at it second. No, I'm sorry, I thought it was $5.
But if you'd like to donate
I know, I
$365,
It was $5, or am I on the wrong line?
I can get you a tax deductible letter.
Liabilities, liabilities.
I am liability something.
Second one from the bottom.
This one?
Here's your on your sheet.
Oh, well, what's the other suspense? No, I'm on liabilities on suspense, sorry. I was on
It's another suspense.
It's on the-
Yeah, suspense.
Okay.
Are you finished it?
I am.
Oh, there
Yes.
was parking up on the lot there the other night, the other day that's for.
Because of the election.
Oh, okay.
But we,
There's an entrance and it's usable.
it is usable. We made the decision, though, with it getting dark so early that the 5 o'clock shift, we got permission for them to park in Our Lady of Mercy, so,
Good.
so that they wouldn't have to, it's not paved up there.
Yeah.
So,
It's
Yeah.
during the day. it could be.
yeah, yeah.
So I'll make a motion to approve the check register as presented.
Second.
But you're making a motion to include the whole treasurer's report, right?
Yeah.
Well, I was gonna do the check register first.
Oh, separate?
That's what we usually do.
Okay. all right. This is just to approve the check register.
Okay, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
I guess that before you make the next motion, and maybe before you made that one, I should say that another thing David and Margaret and I talked about today is that, as you probably all know, our credit card has an overall credit limit of $10,000. And at this moment, we owe them something like $8,800. So on Monday, he wishes to make a phone payment because the money is due, or there will be a late fee. And I have over here all the documentation of all the expenses. I've gone through them all myself. Most of them were approved by me before they were spent, or by Margaret before they were spent. But if anyone wants to look at that, that's fine. But I guess it's our plan to make a phone ACH transfer on Monday to make sure that we don't get a late fee. And I think that should be disclosed. So, questions, concerns? Okay.
Make a motion to approve the treasurer's report.
We have a second?
Who seconded?
Peter? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that was unanimous.
I did make Margaret spit out her coffee earlier today because when I was reviewing all those credit card expenses, I said, boy, all those $18 expenses add up to like $8,000. So, anyway.
All right, thanks, Tim. Okay, the next on the agenda is committee reports.
Do you have
Who's
to
going
do
to give?
treasurers? I mean, no.
Oh, I'm sorry, staff and director's reports, we're going to move that down the agenda, sorry.
No, don't you have to do the finance? No, okay.
No, the next,
Just approved, it was
We
just
just did
approved.
it.
No,
yeah.
I thought you just do you don't have to do the treasurer's report.
Item,
Okay.
yeah, item B
Okay.
is moved.
Check register and then treasurer.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh.
I was here,
We
I
had-
don't know.
Yeah, we had two motions on it.
Okay, that's it. I'm sorry, I was on the check register.
Okay, committee reports, who's going to give the finance committee report? Because Brian's not here, right?
That's true.
We didn't have a meeting.
I can do it.
What do you want to do? Yeah.
We're moving it down a little bit.
Wait, are you referring to the meeting that I was at the audit committee?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's the only meeting we had. Was the meeting with the audit committee.
So that's your
We were
report.
supposed to have a meeting, but we got it.
All right.
Not very wide, but
Yeah, that was part of it, but someone else couldn't come too. Chris Lane Champion really wanted to be there, so.
Okay, personnel labor management will be deferred to executive session. Policy committee, Judy?
Nothing to report. We'll be setting up a meeting, well, after JP's on here, so Nothing to report.
Okay.
We did attend the webinar, right?
Oh.
Since the last time.
Yes,
Yeah.
Tim, Jenna, myself, and Sean actually attended a webinar on meeting room use, which is a policy that we're looking at, and which has a lot of layered implications developing meeting room use because of First Amendment issues, because anytime you place a restriction on one type of group, you have to be certain that the restriction is placed on all similarly situated types of groups. There's a lot of decisions that are gonna have to be made by policy committee, a lot of recommendations, and then decisions by this group as to what changes we might wanna implement in the meeting room use if we want to implement any changes. Right now, it's pretty restricted.
Is that webinar
Jenna.
available to watch?
It probably is.
I could look for it for you, Carol. if you'd
It
like.
probably is. We probably have the link to that webinar, I would think. I don't know if you need a special login or something, I don't know, but Tim will look
I'll
that up.
search my old email and send it to you.
It was very legally based because it had lots to do with First Amendment issues. But it's still really, I mean, it's very interesting.
Yeah.
And there was some very good practical advice on it too, especially since you're on the committee.
Question
And we have
on
handouts, too.
webinars, can you stop them?
Usually,
Go
Yes.
back
yeah.
to
Yes.
Pick up where you left off?
I mean,
Yes.
most of them, we watch live, but then you get a stream that you can watch later, and yeah, it's like TV, DVR.
Okay. Let's go to Upper Hudson. Bert, do you have anything to report?
Yes, the Upper Hudson meeting was yesterday. It was well attended, and the other libraries are very happy that Guilderland left $113,000 on the plate. Yeah,
Yep.
couldn't get the time constraints for putting together the information needed on that. They passed a budget for the Upper Hudson, and the treasurer's report was, also reviewed. I have that information in case anybody needs it. The staff report was, the director was reporting on the budget and court trustee training. The dates for the next year were set for that. And there were three new members sworn into the Upper Hudson Library Board, replacing people who had resigned. And, it was the meeting mainly was to go over the budget, both the central library budget and the UHLS budget, and the revised construction credit distributions. Other than that, nothing earth-shattering, happened there. I did report in the trustee reports that we were having the program with Ron Darling next week.
Very good, thank you. Ron Dartmouth. I would like to add that when Upper Hudson passed its budget the other night, one of the things that was in the budget was the money to buy the Boopsy library app that all 29 member libraries will be able to use, and it's targeted to start running in late February, early March, and will just really do wonderful things. Like you can be at a bookstore or at a friend's dinner party and scan a CD and find out if Guilderland has it, or if another library in the system has it, and place a hold on it, all by pushing about 5 buttons on your phone. So if we promote it well, hopefully it will increase library use, basically. So that's a good thing.
Okay. Next on the agenda is the foundation. Karen?
No, I wasn't able to go to that meeting, so I think Tim, you went.
Yeah, I'll say a couple brief things. Obviously, the Ron Darling event is this Friday night, this next Friday night. And we think we're going to sell 450 books, so that's pretty exciting. Along the same lines, there is a subcommittee of the foundation that considers book signings and local notable authors and local notable authors. And one of the proposals before them is a proposal that they do a book signing with the book coming out next month by Joe Bruno. So they're considering that as a potential event which might draw a lot of interest and sell a lot of books. It's just interesting enough that I thought maybe the library board would be interested in hearing about it. I don't know what decision they've made yet. And then I can't remember if we talked about this at the last board meeting or not, but the final figure on profit for the gala was about $18,500. And if my recollection is correct, that's about $1,000 more than the previous year. So that's what's going on with the foundation. Oh, and by the way, the foundation had election for officers for the coming year because in October they change over. So Rosemary Revoir is going to do a third term as president. Steve Waxman is going to be vice president. And the treasurer will continue to be Ann Lala. And I think they have a new secretary, but I can't quite remember. Sorry about that. Somebody will be secretary.
Okay. Okay, Tim, I think you were going to give us the construction grant update.
Construction grant update. So as you know, we have a plan on the design table to replace all the heat pumps and potentially also to replace all the ceiling tiles and to turn 4 windows into escape windows for the event of fire or active shooter. So we approached a firm called ME Engineering in Schenectady and asked them to do a proposal for the construction management, bidding management phase of that job. And they did do a proposal. They think that the job will cost them, or will cost us, $38,000 if we choose to hire them. So that sounded a little bit high to me. So I also had a meeting with CS Arch, a company that we've worked with through the school district and so forth. And I'm a little bit bollocksed for 2 reasons. I could use any guidance that you folks have, but when I met with CS Arch, I explained the project to them, and then I just was kind of dreaming things up in my head, and I said, you know, it also would be good to investigate having a sprinkler system or a halide system, some sort of a fire prevention system in the library. And since the heat pump system is water, that's what made me think of the sprinkler system. It seemed like if you were going to install one, this might be the time. And so CS Arch did a proposal that is not exactly apples to apples with ME Engineering's. And the additional wrinkle that I just can't quite get my mind around is that CS Arch's proposal is that they want to charge us $4,800 to write a proposal that they would then give us in January. So that's another way that it's not apples and apples, you know. So I've got an offer for $38,000 for 4 out of 5 jobs from ME Engineering, and $5,000 plus an unspecified higher number with CS Arch. And I think one thing I should do is probably call ME Engineering back and say, can you go a little bit back to the drawing board and include some sort of a sprinkler system in this, just so that we can compare apples to apples. And then, just thinking out loud, I guess I have to say to CS Arch, you know, another firm's able to give me a figure and you're not. You know, and yet I believe there is a value to working with CS Arch. I think that the relationship that the school district has with them is valuable, and I think that between their gentlemen who consistently work on school district building projects and Cliff, I think CS Arch gives us an extra set of eyes that reside over at the school district. So I really just don't know what to do. And it got close enough to the board meeting that I thought I'd just wait till now and kind of present to you this sort of quandary that I'm in. I don't think I want to spend any time getting a third estimate for a project. But I can do that, of course, if you direct me to, but it tends to take about a month to contact them, make an appointment, explain it to them, and then they go back to their office for a couple of weeks, and then you get a proposal. And so I really don't have a recommendation, but it seems to me like those 2 phone calls are my next steps. So.
Did they give a reason as to why they need so much to write up the proposal, you know?
The 5,000 to write up the proposal?
Yeah.
They may have. I can't quite remember the wording as we sit here.
And then they're gonna spend a couple of days.
They are, yeah. They're gonna,
Looking around?
yeah. They, one of the key differences between ME Engineering and CS Arch is worth mentioning, and I did mention it in a previous meeting. ME Engineering was presented with the idea of replacing every heat pump at once. And one of the questions I asked both groups was, is that a smart idea? And both groups agreed that it was a smart idea. But when I asked the question of CS Arch, they said it was a smart idea, but we should do it in 2 or 3 waves for a couple of reasons. One, because they all have theoretically the same life. So we could be putting a director 25 years down the road in a position of needing to replace them all at once. But I subsequently thought about that for a while, and the current heat pumps have not all failed at once. So I'm not sure that that makes sense. But the other factor that makes sense is that there's this competitive pool of grant money every year, and if you ask for 600,000, you're not likely to get it. I used the wrong number. Let's say 250,000. You're a lot less likely to get half of that than if you're asking for 60,000 each year for 3 years. The negative on that is there's energy efficiency to be gained by replacing the heat pumps. And actually, Peter, I've been wondering about just calling you up and sitting with you, or maybe getting a committee meeting together. I think that would be a good step. So that's where I'm at right now, and I'm obviously making suggestions.
Just have a question for you.
Sure.
What are they suggesting of fire suppression? Because when the library was built, we were advised against putting in sprinklers because of the books.
Right.
So are they suggesting just in areas like this, or?
No, I think the conversation we had was throughout. And the purpose of a fire suppression system is to save the people, not to save the books. And you'd lose the books, basically. They'd get wet, that would be a negative. But to my personal judgment, the lives of anyone in the building, staff and patrons, are worth more than the books.
The books are insured anyway, right?
Yeah, the books, I believe, are insured.
Is that
right?
standard
So-
for the industry now? Because
That I don't know. That's a good question. Our sprinkler system's standard.
Yeah, that was my concern, because the sprinkler system might go off,
just
By accident.
malfunction, or somebody might light a match near it to test, some, idiot that comes in.
Yeah.
Might
Yep.
do that, or, and then you destroy your whole collection.
We were talking about alternatives to water as well for those reasons, like chemical fire suppression would probably not hurt the books. So part of their proposal is they want to study sprinkler systems and figure out what's best for our situation, which might lead to the idea that it isn't standard in libraries. So
I would really check that, because they were really insistent that, it not be put in the
Okay.
library when it was built. Just because of what, Herb said, that you have kids that.
the reason I'm hot on it, so to speak, no pun intended, is that every time the fire department comes, they pointedly mention that we're in a building with no sprinkler system. So their perspective, of course, is saving lives, and I guess I've been influenced by that. But I will ask other directors, and I'll ask the ALA and that sort of
Particularly
thing.
if you have all the exits that we have. I mean, that was some of the reasons why as many exits were put in.
Right.
It's not like you're in a small
Yeah.
confined area with one exit. I would really be careful about that.
Okay. Good.
And is CHR, Arch, maybe the reason they're charging us is because of this added,
It could be.
so
It
maybe
could
if
be.
we didn't have that, we wouldn't charge us anything, I mean, they
Yeah.
wouldn't charge us then.
Yeah.
I mean, sprinkler?
Yeah, we didn't have that as part of there.
Okay.
There's no requirement for 3 bids?
No, not that I know of. I mean, maybe a requirement on the part of you telling me.
No,
to
I
get
just
3
didn't know,
bids.
I mean, typically.
I don't know the answer to that, because I was wondering the same
Yeah.
thing. At what point is the competitive bid process
Yeah.
triggered?
You know, I hate to give my opinion, because you probably don't want to do the work, but ultimately you may have to get your own opinion here. We're talking about significant amount of money.
Okay, yep.
Say that again, Dick? I think ultimately Tim should get another opinion.
Yeah, we should just take one. If CHR is gonna pay us one of the charges, we're not gonna get it from them.
Right.
Go through some meetings.
Right, okay, well, I'll get a third opinion.
Well,
Keep-
they may tell us that they're not gonna charge us for that.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Keep in mind that, you know, there's a 10-month backlog at SED, so if I'm another month of getting opinions, I'm another month.
But I thought they even require, I mean, they require me to do an RFP for 3, I mean, to do an RFP out for bids.
SED does? or-
Yeah. I
Okay.
mean, But I'm a school, but, you know, that, even that section, I just don't know the rule.
Mhm.
So even if we're just replacing them, we have to look for them, is it here?
I don't think so on a
It might not be.
On a replacement, you do still have to go through SED, but I don't think, like, all they require of me in one-on-one conversations is that I have an engineering firm who's drawn it up.
That's
So-
fine, yeah, I just don't know the rules, I just, yeah.
I can double check
So,
that.
what year, 7 or 8 of them, and
Yeah.
we didn't have to go.
Yeah, we replace them one by one,
Yeah.
yeah, we haven't gone through.
But it's a dollar amount, I think
and
that's the issue.
It's a dollar
Right.
amount, and it's also a grant, you know, like, we haven't replaced the other ones through a grant. Judy, I'm sorry.
No, I was following up, that there's a dollar amount that triggers the
Yeah.
competitive.
One
I
by
don't know
one
what
is
that
just
is.
operational maintenance, but like 38,000 kind of sets a trigger, I think.
My understanding is it's a dollar amount of the project,
Right.
not the project management,
But-
that
but-
triggers.
I don't know, I mean,
Wow.
I thought it really is an expenditure. I mean, the $38,000, whether you're spending it on management or whether you're spending it on equipment, I
Yeah,
think,
pretty, yeah.
I don't think it's what you're spending it on, I think
Okay.
it's that you're spending it, I think, but
Well, I
we
have
should
no
get an
problem.
opinion about that.
Yeah.
And let's get
Yeah.
informed,
Yeah,
whatever.
I'll check on that, and I'll most likely get a third opinion.
It's all part of the project.
Right, right,
Yeah.
right.
But if you were replacing one by one and it was under, it's usually the
Yeah.
dollar mark
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
marks the reason why you have to get the bids or.
Yeah, do what you can. We have a short month, the next meeting's the 8th of
Okay.
December, so you get a holiday in there too.
Okay.
What's the grant from Pat Beatty still not?
It's still not received, correct.
That's ridiculous.
And frankly, I haven't, I thought of it today, but I haven't had time to check on it.
Assembly Finance is still sitting on it?
Yep. The guy told me to check back once a month, and I did that last month, but not this month, so.
Okay. Under new business, Tim, you wanted to talk about this audit workshop, right?
Yes, the OSC audit workshop, I'm grabbing my notes from that. Now, that was on Friday, October 28th, and I had intended to go, but then I was offered a chance to go to the World Series, so I knew that.
You're fired.
Yeah, thank you.
It's a tough
Our choice.
I knew that Margaret and David Gilliam were going to go. So it was a good session, but it raised as many questions as it answered, naturally. So one of our growth areas that Margaret and David perceived is that we ought to have written accounting procedural manuals. And this would make a lot of sense when we're facing situations like learning how to process payroll and the sudden resignation of the fiscal officer. Now, David and I and Margaret were speaking about it today. The comptroller doesn't provide a whole lot of guidance in exactly how these manuals and policies should read. They just want you to have a policy and follow it about various fiscal matters. So what we thought today when we were speaking about it was that, and I'm getting ahead of myself with a different part of the meeting, but once we're able to hire a fiscal officer, It's my feeling that we're going to want David Gilliam on with that fiscal officer for a period of time until that other person is on his or her feet. And then I'd like to consider keeping someone like David to do this kind of documentation work, because he's a very, very good guy. But at any rate, one thing we learned there is that we're probably not in compliance in terms of having our financial processes written down.
Can Upper Hudson help with that? Because other libraries may have,
Good
those
call.
policies written already, and if we could, you can, get some of that information, we don't have to, we may not have to reinvent the wheel.
Good call.
And not only Upper Hudson, but Katie and Vince.
Yeah, right.
Our audit committee, they all, well, I don't know about Neil, but certainly Alex has at his fingertips many, many procedural manuals
Okay.
And they didn't
for
bring that up.
not-for-profits.
The audit didn't bring it up.
No, the audit didn't bring that up, so.
It's a little odd,
um,
to be honest with you.
Yeah.
It's very odd.
Yeah. Point taken. A second and major focus is that we had hoped that the presentation would clearly define how a school district public library board retains a treasurer. And basically it was the wild blue yonder, according to David and Margaret. There's no clear guidance on the treasurer, with the exception that the treasurer cannot be a board member. So we're basically back to square one on the
Any
idea.
reason different?
I thought it's because it's in this education law, because of our connection to school districts, that we follow the same law that the school district requires, and I can't remember what provision it is, but it's clear for school districts.
I think you are correct. And there's this guy, Joe Eisner, who's
Yes.
like the guru of library governance. And Margaret wrote to him last time when we were looking for a treasurer. And from his answer, which I can't quote verbatim, but it was very clear that school district public libraries, it had a sentence in his response that said something like, school district public libraries may choose not to use the services of the school district treasurer, which implies that some or many school district public libraries use the services of the school district treasurer. So just for giggles, over coffee, I asked my wife if we could use the services of the treasurer, and she said it's not out of the question. It's something that we'd have to work on together. So that's one theoretical possibility. The other is that Carol Valakovic was so desperate to get a ticket to the Ron Darling reception, and she was 10 minutes late, that she agreed to be our treasurer if we would sell her a $50 ticket. So Carol does stand willing to be our treasurer if that is an approach that we want to take.
Yeah, but I don't know if that was informed consent. So
Yeah, she needs to hear more about what will be required. Yeah, so, yep, she needs to hear more
She's
about.
understood.
Yeah, yeah. Yep. So the treasurer issue, unresolved, and we didn't get much help from the comptroller's workshop.
Is it posted? We're not there yet. but
No, we haven't posted that. The fiscal officer is essentially posted. We sent letters today on the fiscal officer. Libraries, this is another point from the audit meeting. Libraries are not high on the comptroller's hit list. They're not target rich for his office. They may be doing some things wrong, but the scale of the finances is smaller than a lot of the other organizations that they're after. So they've done about 8 school district public libraries so far. And I think we should be, forward-thinking and vigilant, and I think we will get audited. But I don't think, we should be quite as. A lot of my colleagues in the library world seem sort of terrified by the prospect, and it's sort of statistically unlikely that we're the next one.
But if we're doing what we're supposed to do in terms of internal controls and having the manuals, then an audit isn't as big a deal.
Right.
I mean, if it inspires us to get on the right page, then so be it. Let's get those manuals
Yep.
done.
Absolutely, I agree. Another disappointment at this event was that they could give no definitive answer on whether we should be charging sales tax on used books and coffee mugs and pies and other things that we sell as a foundation, as a staff committee, or as a library. So basically the default was, well, if you're not charging tax now, just keep not charging tax. But the caveat was, you really ought to talk to the State Department of Revenue and Taxation, so.
That's Katie's job.
Okay.
Just speak to Katie, I mean, because
Mhm.
if they don't have the ready answer, then they will call up the controller's office and
Okay.
get through.
Okay,
That's definitely their job.
okay.
There's a lot more paperwork.
Yeah, it is a lot.
But it could be under the business revenue that
Sure.
we need to report and we need to get sales tax on, it could be.
Okay, and the last of the 5 major themes from the meeting are that, as we know, checks need to be approved in advance of the board meetings and of the expenditures, excuse me, better way to put it. But the timely, they basically had no answer to this, but the timely nature of a lot of bills that need to be paid led the group in the audience to conclude, in David's words, that, quote, the comptroller is, quote, dictating an unworkable situation, unquote. You know, so be it. We're doing the best that we can, and I think that everyone in this room has made a good, and David have made a good faith effort to get everything prepaid that we can, that we know we're going to incur before the next board meeting. Where 2 places where it's particularly difficult are during those months when we skip a board meeting, and then our agreement with the Central Guilderland Central School District means that the bills related to the loading dock project have to be paid within 10 days of receipt, and that's sometimes not possible because we don't have a board meeting every 10 days.
I thought we did a resolution.
I think we
Yeah.
did, yeah.
Yeah.
I just wanted to double check that I thought we did that resolution, so,
Yeah, no.
okay.
We did.
Yeah.
So that was what happened at the comptroller's workshop. It was good to go to, according to those who went. You know, it's, sometimes it feels, maybe it feels this way to you guys too as board members, but it feels like we're wandering through a dark cave with a blindfold on, trying to figure out what we're supposed to do. But when we get a clue, we follow it, you know, so.
Well, should we be doing something about filling our treasurer position and talking to Carol? Or in depth, whether we want?
Well, somebody asked me today, David or Margaret asked me, what in your mind would a treasurer do? And I said, I think the treasurer would come in and get the financial reports at the same time the board gets them, which should be Monday, I know, and would review them, and then would come to the board meeting and would give an outside opinion on the financial state of the library for that month. And in addition to that, would attend any finance, budget committee meetings, audit committee meetings that needed to take place. So that, to me, is, you know,
Well,
maybe.
may have to talk with our finance person here, if there's questions before the meeting. I would think, you know.
That's what any treasurer of a board does.
Sure.
Yeah, overviews, finance committee, and,
Yeah.
So I'm perfectly happy to work with Carol if she remains. Brian's the chair of finance. Yeah, so.
Well, I think we ought to come to some agreement as to what we're gonna do as soon as possible.
You could invite her to the next meeting.
Well, you really should
Come
interview.
to meetings? Would she be able to come to meetings?
Yes.
Usually in tax, because I know tax season's coming up, so.
Well, she always did.
But that's great, that would be great.
Yeah, I mean, she wouldn't have to stay the whole meeting, I would
We
think.
could move the agenda around if we had to. Yeah, that'd be great.
She had to be a little late, or
Yeah, we can look up the agenda.
Give her
she's not a vote, she's an appointed member, I don't know the rules of
Correct.
this.
I believe she'd be appointed, yeah.
Yeah.
Some people may pay a treasurer, I
And
don't
it's a
know. you
volunteer
know.
position.
My thought is that we're
Non-voting, what?
Interviewer?
Non-voting.
Mhm.
Make a decision.
Interviewer as a board.
Yeah.
Why,
Okay.
why do you have to interview her?
people want to. We're gonna be appointing her as treasurer, I mean, people want to.
Well, it's a board vote to
Yeah.
appoint her, or is it president appoint?
It's a vote, it's a vote.
It's board vote, I don't know.
It's one of the
she's an
officers
officer.
listed.
She's an
Oh,
officer.
she is.
But
She's
not
not
voting, but
voting.
not voting.
Not voting
Oh,
officer.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she should come to, you know.
What are we aiming to do long-term? Hire her, or, excuse me, someone as treasurer to perform those duties? And what, have a fiscal officer work full-time here?
Well, you need a fiscal
We
officer.
definitely have to
Yeah,
have a
She would,
She would be
to me, she
volunteer.
would be a volunteer,
Right.
but you still need a fiscal officer who can.
But you could have a fiscal officer, like Dan was also treasurer, which I never understood really, but you know, if you put that as allowable.
It's apparently
Doesn't make any
allowable.
sense.
Yeah.
I feel like it
Doesn't
was
make any sense.
too much for one
Yeah,
position,
right.
you know, so.
It's just.
So we're saying that you think it would be a volunteer position?
Yeah.
And the fiscal officer would be
Oversees
full-time?
the report.
Yeah, it's a board member.
Then will we need anyone else?
Would the other option be to hire a full-time fiscal officer and have Dave Gillen be the treasurer?
He doesn't like to come out at night.
Although, we could certainly ask him, you know.
And he's resolved that he's not, doesn't want to work full-time.
And I'm not
long-term.
saying that not to have Carol, I just mean if it doesn't work out, or if we decide on a different scenario.
Sure. I think that's good thinking. You know, he's pretty qualified, you know, so.
We get the information from civil service as to exactly what the position.
Let me go ahead, since we're on that subject. So I created a job description for civil service, and with Margaret's help, we took pieces of 20 different job descriptions, because there really isn't one that exactly says what this position requires. And then we sent it to civil service and asked for their advice as to whether this was a new position or whether what existing job title fit it most closely. And the answer was, wow, you've done some really great work here, but the title that most closely fits is the title you're already using, Fiscal Officer 1. So they sent a list of the people that have taken, it was recently an exam. There were only 7 people on the list, so we sent them all a letter today asking if they're interested. The scores ranged from 95 to 70 on the list. And there were several 70s, 2 or 3 anyway.
You have to take a 70?
If they're reachable, yeah.
Ridiculous.
If the top few pass, then yes, you have to hire from that list.
However, he did say something along the lines of, there were a lot of familiar names to him on the list, and it was likely that many of them would turn us down, in which case, these are my words, not his, but we could basically just advertise.
And you hire provisionally.
Hire provisionally, and they would have to pass the exam. Yeah, so,
Is there a salary range associated with that?
well, Chris and I, in a finance committee meeting, I believe, in the Norman Skill Room, was that a finance committee meeting? Personnel. Anyway, we were thinking 50 to 70. So when I costed out the budget for labor, I included 70 just because it's the high end of the range.
Does civil service have a guide for
They
what
don't.
the salary?
They don't
No.
talk about salaries at all. And I was asked, and this is the one thing from my list of stuff from the last board meeting that I haven't gotten done yet, which is to figure out what other libraries are paying these people. So I'll put it on this list. So.
When's your next test? Yeah, if you hired provisionally, when would the next test be?
I don't know.
They don't
cover
give
that.
them regularly, it's just a random announcement, but if they know we need one, we could say, you know, we're hiring provisionally, they will try to expedite that
Could
for
be
us and
3
hold it.
years.
An exam.
Do they have to have a certain degree to take the test?
Pardon?
Do they have to have a certain degree to take the test?
They have to meet the min quals, yes, in order to qualify to take the
You know
test.
what that is?
I think it was a BA in accounting. wasn't
It's
it?
either a BA or an associate degree plus experience, it's an either or thing, you either have to have the
But that's
work
what you would
experience or the
publish.
education.
Yeah. So we hired.
Do you have the
provisionally after
notice that they sent out as to the qualifications?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Good, because maybe the board members would want to see that.
I'd be happy to email that to you.
I can send it, I have a
Okay.
fiscal officer one.
Okay.
Sure.
Why don't you send them also the document I did, which tells what the person really does? you know?
Okay, sure.
Okay, so, yeah,
All-
to all board.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Everybody.
Yes.
The president wants 45 on the job, and all right.
Getting back to our treasurer position, if we want to invite Carol to the next meeting, that would be a one's choice. So we have no treasurer.
I certainly always thought that she gave our group really sound advice. Pretty no-nonsense person.
If you want to call her, invite her to the next meeting, you should tell her in advance, though, what
Why?
we envisioned
Right,
proposing to her, so it's not a surprise,
sure.
that description you gave.
Okay. Will do.
Okay. Okay, next on the agenda is approval of the minutes of the regular board meeting in October. By the way, whoever did these minutes, it was Jen and Judy, right? You did a great job, Jen. Geez. Does everybody have a chance to look at it? Okay, do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Chris, second, anybody? Peter, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that was unanimous. Thank you. Public input session number 2. Nobody's walked in. Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn to executive session?
Make that motion.
We're going to do that after executive session. Yeah, yeah. Okay, who made that motion?
I did.
Karen, anyone second?
I'll second.
Judy, all in favor? Thank you. Okay, does anybody need to take a 5-minute break?